Have you finished the housework and laundry? I won't tolerate slacking off just because of a broken bone.
The moment I answered my husband's call, his angry voice came through. This is how he often calls to check if I'm not taking a break despite my injury. I'm having guests over right now. I'm doing the housework properly. Where are you? That last question triggered his anger.
Where I am is none of your business. Don't say unnecessary things. You ugly.
As usual, I had the speaker on, so his yelling echoed through the room. Hearing that, the guest's face twisted in anger. As a result, my husband faced the consequences. I'm Kelly. At 52, I feel like I get tired very easily. My late mother used to say, "You feel more tired after 50, and now I truly feel that way." My only daughter, Miranda, became independent 3 years ago, so I thought I would finally have some time for myself, but life doesn't go as planned. Now, my husband Mark's mother, who is 7 years older than me, has collapsed and needs care. Make sure mom isn't inconvenienced. What? You're going to help take care of her too, right?
Huh? Taking care of parents is the wife's duty. I'm too busy with work.
Even though it's his own parent, my husband acted indifferent. But I kind of expected this. After all, he had always dumped all the childcare and housework on me since we were young. However, he seemed to love our daughter and would take care of her if asked, but only to spoil her and take all the credit. Even so, he did his job well, and I resigned myself to thinking that every family is like this. Looking back now, I should have voiced my opinions clearly. Maybe then things wouldn't have turned out like this. Mark, who was always a domineering husband, started to belittle me even more as he got older.
Other wives are doing much better. You're not even a proper woman. Even though you're being supported, you don't appreciate me. Show more respect.
His complaints were always vague, and I couldn't figure out what exactly I was doing wrong. Be more specific. What should I be mindful of?
You don't even know that. Figure it out yourself.
I couldn't agree with him, but I knew if I argued back, my husband would get furious, and we'd end up fighting. So, I kept quiet. I didn't want my daughter to see her parents fighting. You see, my parents were always arguing. They ended up divorcing when I was in elementary school, and the painful memories still haunt me. Even though my husband always talked as if he was the only one working, saying I'm the one providing, I had a job too. I worked full-time at a local grocery store. I had been there for a long time, and I got along well with my coworkers. It was a comfortable place. The store manager trusted me so much that I was in charge of overseeing the employees. Sure, my salary was lower and there were no promotions compared to my husband, who worked for a big company, but I took pride in my work. However, he never acknowledged that.
Your job doesn't even count as work. Well, it's because you're not capable enough to get a better paying job. That's a terrible thing to say. Shut up. Don't forget, we live off my salary.
My husband's domineering attitude only grew as I didn't talk back. I was treated like a housemaid. The only things that saved me were my daughter's growth and my job. But after she graduated from college, got a job, and moved out, my mother-in-law collapsed and needed care. So, I had to quit the job I loved. Some might say I should just ignore my cold-hearted husband's parents, but my in-laws, who lived nearby, were kind and warm to me. Many people have trouble with their in-laws, but I never had such issues. In fact, my mother-in-law would often say, "Mark is selfish, so I'm sure Kelly has a hard time." I'm sorry. It's okay, Mom. Mark is working hard. Of course, I couldn't complain about my husband to them, so that's what I said. My father-in-law was also kind, but had a bad back and couldn't do much. I'm sorry we rely on you so much, Kelly. You're such a kind daughter-in-law. I'm grateful. Thank you. No, I'm the one who should be thankful for how kind you both are. They always had kind words for me as I went to take care of them. Not once has Mark ever said a kind word to me. Doing housework and childcare was taken for granted, more than that.
Today's meal is so plain. Can't you make something more elaborate? Ugly and a bad cook. I really failed in choosing a wife.
My husband was always complaining and looking down on me. Even though I was busy visiting my in-laws, their kindness was a balm for my soul. However, about a year after starting the caregiving, my mother-in-law passed away. Despite my grief, I continued to help my father-in-law with the housework. My husband's attitude worsened, and his insults grew more vicious. He'd suddenly slam the table in anger or spit out the food I worked hard to prepare. "Why do you always act like this?"
Just looking at your face makes me sick. Being with you just ruins my mood, so I'm eating out.
He wouldn't discuss anything and lashed out whenever something displeased him. He had always been cold to me, but I thought he was just getting more stubborn with age. I had no idea what was really behind his awful behavior. One day, I finally snapped and glared back at him. "Enough. Why do you say such horrible things? Now that Mom doesn't need care, it's obvious why you're going to my family's house." "What do you mean? You're after Dad's inheritance, aren't you?" I was stunned that he would think such a thing.
Don't misunderstand. I'm helping because your father can't manage alone with his bad back.
Yeah, sure. But let me tell you, all of Dad's money and his soon-to-be retirement payout are mine. You won't get a cent. What? I was too shocked to even respond. After that, our conversations dwindled to almost nothing, and we lived like mere housemates. While I was wondering what to do next, my daughter frequently contacted me, worried about my broken bone. That's when she told me something. So, that's what was going on. I found several crumpled envelopes at the bottom of the trash can, and their contents shocked me to my core. Though I was seething inside, I decided it wasn't the right time to confront him and kept my feelings bottled up. As my husband neared retirement, he came home late and spent his days off grooming himself in front of the mirror and humming as he left the house. In hindsight, his suspicious behavior was obvious, but I no longer cared about him enough to be bothered. I was thinking about divorce, but I couldn't abandon my father-in-law. Mark would never take care of his father. I've endured this long, so I'll just hang on a little longer. While thinking this, I was pushing myself to the edge. I became mentally strained and got tired more easily. One day, perhaps from overexertion, I fell while hanging laundry in the yard. A sharp pain shot through my arm, and a visit to the hospital confirmed a broken left arm. It wasn't bad enough to require hospitalization, but I couldn't manage the housework. What am I gonna do now? This is bad. Despite this, my husband not only refused to help but also insisted that I must continue doing housework. "I've tried my best as your wife. Can't you show a little compassion at times like this?"
Huh? What kind of spoiled nonsense is that? Don't forget that you've lived comfortably all this time thanks to me.
There was no way I could live the rest of my life with this man. Maybe it's time to seriously consider ending our marriage. Even while thinking this, I couldn't bring myself to ask for a divorce. I was most worried about my father-in-law, so I contacted him to let him know I might not be able to visit for a while. "I'm fine, but Kelly, are you okay? Your arm must hurt. Take your time to heal." My father-in-law was as kind as ever. Compared to him, my husband was so cold. I was almost in tears from my father-in-law's kind words, and I couldn't find the right words to respond. Then something decisive happened. That day, my husband, despite having a day off, was getting ready to go out. "Where are you going?"
Shut up. More importantly, make sure all the laundry and cleaning are done by the time I get back in the evening. And cook a meat dish for dinner. Got it?
Before I could respond, Mark slammed the front door and left quickly. With a heavy heart, I was struggling to do the housework with just my right arm when the doorbell rang, and an unexpected visitor arrived. While I was talking to the visitor, my husband called.
Have you finished the housework and laundry? I won't tolerate slacking off just because of a broken bone.
As usual, I had the speaker on, so my husband's abusive words echoed from the phone.
Useless good for nothing. Don't forget you're living off my earnings. If the housework isn't done by the time I get home, I'll beat you up.
Ever since I got injured, my husband had been making such calls frequently. So, for me, it was nothing new. However, I was embarrassed that my visitor had to hear my husband's cruel words. Someone's here to see me right now. I'm doing the housework. Anyway, where are you?
Where I am and what I'm doing is none of your business. Don't say unnecessary things, you ugly.
At that moment, the visitor suddenly grabbed my phone and yelled at my husband. Do you always treat Kelly like this? Huh? Who are you?
You idiot. Don't you recognize your own father's voice? Dad.
Yes, the visitor was my father-in-law. He had sensed something was wrong when I contacted him and came to check on me. Hearing Mark's words, he angrily shouted into the phone.
Come home immediately. Got it? What? Now? But No excuses.
Without waiting for my husband's response, my father-in-law hung up the phone. Then, with a look of fury directed at Mark, he bowed deeply to me. I'm truly sorry, Kelly. I never thought Mark would turn out to be such a disgrace. You haven't done anything wrong. Please. It might sound strange coming from me, but Kelly, you should think about your own happiness and find freedom from now on. I had almost given up on my husband, but my father-in-law's words gave me courage. He looked me firmly in the eye. I'll move to a facility and live freely, so don't worry about me. But then you'd have to leave the home you're familiar with.
I can't let you suffer anymore.
I tried to persuade him to reconsider several times, but his resolve was firm. I can't bear this any longer. I feel too guilty towards you, Kelly. Consider this my one and only wish, please divorce Mark. After being asked repeatedly, I finally made up my mind to cut ties with my husband. 30 minutes later, Mark rushed back home, looking flustered. Where's Dad? He's not here? He told me to come back. Oh, were you in the middle of having fun with your young girlfriend? Huh? What are you talking about? He tried to play dumb, but I didn't back down. Her name is Chris, right? You don't do anything at home, but at her place, you do the cleaning, laundry, and cooking, don't you? What? How do you know that? Mark looked puzzled, so I showed him the screen of my smartphone. Seeing it, his eyes widened in shock, and he tried to snatch the phone from me. You've been snooping around on me, haven't you? It wasn't me. Mirabelle found it. My husband never imagined his own daughter would discover his affair on social media. He was quite shocked. Sweat started to bead on his forehead as he realized Mirabelle knew. When my daughter called to check on me after my injury, she shared this discovery. She sent me photos from the other woman's social media, pointing out the hair, clothes, and watch that were clearly her father's. You must have told Mirabelle to spy on me, didn't you? Don't misunderstand. Mirabelle found it by chance while looking through her friend's social media. In this age when anyone can see strangers' posts, he must not have considered this possibility. The posts by his mistress included captions like "Met this wonderful older guy at a bar," with Mark's grinning profile prominently featured. There were also videos of him busily doing housework at the young woman's place. Despite being recorded so much, my husband must have believed he wouldn't be caught. After seeing the photos of Mark with his mistress, I decided to divorce him once things settled with my father-in-law's care. Honestly, seeing him humming and grooming his hair struck me as so ridiculous I almost burst out laughing. Mirabelle said she never wants to see you again. She's blocking your contact. What? No way. Frantically, he pulled out his phone and tried to call our daughter, but the call wouldn't even go through. I didn't want Mirabelle to find out. Of course not. You never did anything around the house, but you did take care of Mirabelle. Now even the daughter you cherished hates you. How pathetic. Well, you brought this on yourself. Even after hearing my words, Mark kept dialing Mirabelle's number, looking more pathetic and pitiful by the second. To make him face reality, I picked up my phone. Hey, Mirabelle. I've decided to divorce your father. Mark, desperate, tried to interject, Mirabelle, it's a misunderstanding. Through the speaker, we heard her shouting, I'll never forgive you for betraying Mom. You disgust me. At that moment, Mark's shoulders sagged, and he hung his head. But after all the suffering he put me through, I wasn't going to let him off that easily. After telling my daughter, I'll call you back later, I ended the call and looked my husband straight in the eye. Not only are you cheating, but it looks like you've been spending a lot on Chris. What? How do you know that? I found this. It's over $100,000. Were you buying her expensive bags and branded accessories? I handed him the demand letters from the finance company that I found in the trash. My husband, who hadn't realized I knew, started shaking. When I found those letters, I figured he was spending on his mistress and planned to cover the debt with his retirement money, so I decided to confront him. Yeah, so what? What's wrong with buying designers' brand bags and accessories for the woman I love? As long as you can pay off the debt yourself, I don't care. My husband, frustrated, gritted his teeth and stepped closer to me.
If you know everything, then this makes it easier. I'm gonna marry my soulmate. Goodbye, you ugly old hag. Serves you right.
And? Is there anything else you want to say?
I'm not giving you my retirement money. And the family assets are mine. You're leaving this house with nothing.
Even though he was cheating, my husband's selfish justifications and cruel words left me so astonished that I was at a loss for words. Mark puffed out his chest, looking victorious. At that moment, the door to the next room burst open with a loud bang.
That's enough, Mark.
What? Dad? What are you doing here? I thought you left. My father-in-law stormed in, furious. He stayed in the next room to see how you treat me and hear what you say to me. But his shoes weren't at the entrance. He hid his shoes so you wouldn't notice. He heard everything you said to me. Now your true colors are revealed.
You dirty woman! How dare you!
My husband tried to grab me, but my father-in-law quickly seized his arm.
Ow! Dad, that hurts! Let go! Shut up!
I had never seen my father-in-law this angry before. Despite his usual frailty, he moved swiftly to stand between us. Even when my husband tried to pull his arm away, my father-in-law's grip didn't budge. His strength surprised me, and I was left speechless.
You're not getting any of the assets. I'm using my money to move into a facility. The rest will be given to Kelly as a living inheritance. What? Are you kidding me? You're favoring her over your own son?
Mark, panicked, looked wide-eyed, sweat pouring from his forehead. However, my father-in-law ignored his own son and gave him a cold look. Kelly's the one who took care of your late mother and me all this time. To us, she's like a daughter. What about me? What's going to happen to me?
You didn't even visit your mother when she wanted to see you. You're only after my money, you're the outsider here.
No. Abandoned by his father, Mark couldn't do anything. He turned to me with a pitiful look, begging. The truth is, my retirement money is going to pay off my debts. I was counting on Dad's inheritance. Kelly, please help me. Why should I? We've been married for so long. I couldn't believe he was saying this now. I was sick of looking at his face. Seeing someone as selfish as you makes me sick. I want a divorce. Wait, let's talk this over. I glared at him and shook my head firmly. I don't even want to look at you. Oh, and I'll be asking for alimony, so be prepared.
I don't have any money, please help me.
Get your dear Chris to help you. I'm done. Mark collapsed on the spot, looking pathetic, while my father-in-law and I watched him coldly. I'll leave as you wish. This is our final goodbye. Farewell. I grabbed my packed bags and left the house with my father-in-law before my husband could return. Once outside, my father-in-law put his hand on his back and whispered, "Ouch, ouch. What's wrong?" "Oh, I might have hurt my back when I stepped in between you and Mark earlier." And I used all my strength to grab Mark's arm. How pathetic. You were brave to help me. I'll get you a heat pack later. After tending to my father-in-law at his place, I stayed with my daughter. Later, I divorced my husband and demanded $60,000 in alimony from him and $40,000 from Chris. Mark continued living in our house, so I received a cash settlement according to the division of assets. Our savings were split, but his share went to paying my alimony, and his debts were cleared with his retirement money, leaving him with nothing. He hoped Chris would support him, but when the money ran out, she quickly dumped him. Chris's parents paid her alimony to me, but they disowned her. Mark now gets by on temporary and part-time jobs, and without experience in housework, his place soon became a garbage dump, leading to complaints from the neighbors. I visit my father-in-law frequently at his facility, where he's made friends and seems happy. As for me, I used the money my father-in-law gave me to buy a small house in the suburbs, filled the garden with flowers, and got a puppy. I went back to work at the grocery store, where my coworkers welcomed me back, and I'm enjoying peaceful and refreshing days.